All right, Wes, Colin, welcome. Wes, what prompted you to start a podcast for the Attican Wealth team about building wealth, and why did you want it to be like a daily habit, not just a once a week, once a month, like nuggets of wisdom?
I think wealth has been this weird topic of it's taboo. You don't talk about it very often with your peers. That's one pillar. Then the other pillar is there's just been this narrative of how do you build passive income, bro? How do you work as minimally as possible so that way you don't have to work. You work as minimally as possible to get to critical mass and then never have to work again, and you just sip martinis for the rest of your life. I am not a fan of that. I think there's a cohort of individuals like all of us on this call that are of the belief and the mindset of we want to create value in the world, and that really believe that wealth is what happens when you're busy creating value for other human beings. So I think there needs to be a team around this and a focused, conscious effort on understanding that there's two main categories of wealth building. You have your primary assets and your secondary assets as we define them. Primary assets being defined as you and your business. And that's whether or not you're an intrapreneur or an entrepreneur, right? Because I firmly believe you can be an entrepreneur inside of an organization. And then your secondary assets being the standard 401k, mutual funds, stocks, bonds, real estate, et cetera. So what this team is focused on is, hey, our secondary asset profile it's going to be a function of our primary assets. So the primary assets will be a function of how much value you create in the world. Does that make sense, Colin? I'll throw it over to you. What are your thoughts on that objective?
Yeah, I love it. We talk all the time in our office about what money actually is. And when we say wealth, we mean it holistically. Have you designed a life that you would recognize as enviable, right? Are you committed to this lifestyle? Are you working towards a holistic vision of how you want to spend your time? But typically when you say the word wealth, you're just getting dollar signs in people's heads. And hopefully we are tearing that down and working on building skills and building into a lifestyle that you're attracted to, so that you can maintain it throughout the course of your life. And there's no target dates, there's no retirement dates, there's no things like that, right? This is a never ending game that we want you guys to be a part of the journey. Right. I think Ray actually brought up something that was pretty interesting. Like, why do we want this to be a daily concept? Why do we want to do this 5, 6, 7 days a week as opposed to once a month or every other week? Well, the journey that we're on, we eat shit every single day. And this is how you get better, right? It is pass the sword into the fire and pull it out and bang on it to sharpen it. And we just thought documenting that journey and sharing with you the daily struggles of an intro or entrepreneur, right? As business owners, it's very relatable that you'll hear a lot of the things that we say and understand it, as you have very likely gone through it. So that daily concept of getting this stuff out to the listeners, out to the people that are following along the journey with us, I think is really important as we talk about the wealth creation concept.
Yeah, I think entrepreneurship has historically been a solo sport, and it doesn't have to be. And also, I think it's been, in some degree, a vanity sport of, oh, you see the guy driving the Lamborghini, et cetera, but you don't see the journey of the guy and how it took him 3 decades to get there, and that he had 99% of the time he was failing. It's just that 1% made up disproportionately. And what I think is great about us building this team right now is we're all on different journeys of our entrepreneurship journey. And our business, Colin, in wealth management, so currently, just because I think part of this is authenticity and sharing where we are. So I think as of last trading day, we managed $355 million of assets. We're in the wealth management business, for those of you who don't know. And our goal is to get to $1 billion in management. And Ray, if you don't mind sharing, where are you at in your entrepreneurship journey? What business are you in, et cetera?
I'm an art dealer. There's a couple of different lanes. I sell art out of an art gallery that's very new and emerging artists. That doesn't get me rich. that just keeps me culturally relevant. Then private sales, where I seek out specifically the art that people want, whether I show it in my gallery or not. That is my real bread and butter. I think I've done $1.5 million in sales over the last 3 years. And I can make anywhere between 10, 15, or 50% on each transaction. My goal is to 3x my sales. So simply put, $1.5 million in the last 3 years. I want $1.5 million next year. That is my goal. That is the journey that I want to be on with you guys. Wes, you used the word sport several times, right? You want to treat this like a sport, use the word team. And I made a list of all the different words that come to mind. I'll just go through them quickly and see what echoes for you. So I've got sport, I've got coach, teammates, conditioning, training, personal best, fundamentals, competing, different roles, cheating, rules, team, edge, discipline, gear and tools, practice, visualizing, winning mindset, winning, endurance. You want to riff on why you want to treat building wealth as a sport, and I suppose the Atican Wealth Team podcast as a daily practice, right? It's like mandatory team practice.
Yeah, I think there's so many parallels between building wealth and building business and sports. Number one, you have a clearly defined objective. It naturally built in, even though it might be unarticulated, is a set of rules and standards. And then also an opposing force called the market or the opposing team, right? We have to create value. And that value is the judge, jury, and executioner is the market. The market is whatever the market says. The market judges your ability to produce value to it and your customers. And we can get all into that. That's what's going to make this team outstanding, is that number one, it's an incredibly hard sport. Number two, it's it's a marathon of a sport, not a sprint. Colin and I both know that. Ray, you know that as well. There's just so many parallels. And I don't think it's for everybody. In fact, I think if certain people were to hear, hey, the game of wealth building or the sport of wealth building, they would immediately be turned off. And that's good, right? Then this is not the team for that person. But this is the team for somebody saying, hey, regardless of where I'm starting, even if I'm at the professional level of building my business, or I'm at the amateur level, but I'm now willing to commit to be at least a freshman, right? So no matter if you're a freshman, JV, varsity, or professional at this, and then just to what degree in each one of those stages, then this is the right place. Because what I'd like us all to commit to is 100% authenticity, right? And 100% being willing to document our journey, wins and losses along the way. Colin, what's your perspective?
Yeah, I love it because wins and losses are such a big part of it. Like the hierarchy of sports is just such a great structure or skeleton for how a business looks, right? You're competing at all types of levels, as you articulated, Wes. Some people are just jumping into it for the first time. Some people have been doing it for 50 plus years at this point, and anywhere in between. And then some of those buzzwords that Ray brought up, the endurance of this, the competition, right? There's cheaters involved in the game, right? You have all types of forces, all types of pressure coming from different angles that you have to deal with, that you have to emotionally accept, that you have to physically accept, that you have to coach around, right? So just the analogy of sports fits so well when we're talking about the concept of wealth building. You hear it all the time of you can have all the talent on the field, right? But if the off the field stuff is pulling you away from the main objective, there's just so much influence that's more than just finance or managing money that we have to work with, that we have to deal with, that we have to overcome on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So again, that's the antithesis. That's the reason that we're packaging this together so that we can feel part of a community, that we can share the war wounds or the big wins with others. And again, that sense of community is very helpful, just like a team, right? You have individual sports, you also have team sports. I always enjoyed the team sports more because it was more rewarding when you went through that journey or those struggles with others.
Completely agree. I want to share a data point with you guys. I was listening to, I think it was Squawk Pod which is a financial podcast, on Friday, I believe, last Friday. And it talked about how the creator economy is predicted to double in size. It's called TAM, total addressable market. It's predicted to double in size by 2027, I believe they said, to $480 billion. So to read between the lines here, what we're doing on here, which we think all businesses should do is, and Gary Vaynerchuk, to give him credit, talked about this years ago, is that if you have a current business or creating a business, if you are not in parallel creating a media company, then you're sleeping on the current tech. It is a no-brainer to narrate, as Gary Vaynerchuk says, document, don't create, document your journey along the way. That's what we're doing here. As if you'll notice that right now, 2 of the 3 camera feeds are not high-tech cameras. So we're going to upgrade that. We're not waiting to
Which 2, Wes? Which 2?
Yeah. But there's lessons even in that.
I see 2 handsome devils. I see only 2 handsome devils on this
that's
on
right.
this pod. Okay.
So what we want to share is, how do we build the business along with being imperfect? Ray, what's your perspective on ready, fire, aim?
Wes, this brings me back to something that you challenged me to do a couple of months ago, maybe even a year ago now, where I started posting pictures of art in my gallery to social media, to Instagram. Then I started posting other people's art that I liked, and with text. Look at the texture on this painting. Look at the revolutionary mark making over here. In other words, using social media as a teaching platform, right? And I love what you said about. I love what the spirit of what Gary Vaynerchuk said, where if you're not creating a media company as well as your creator company, you're fighting with one arm tied behind your back. Wes, you encouraged me to record videos in front of work explaining to a client why this Brillo box is important, is because Andy Warhol took a conventional household consumer product and elevated it to art. You then you challenged me to send those out individually. Then you challenged me to send them out to the public, which I have started doing. And and the reason that Gary and you recommend that is because there is a universe of consumers for that information, a universe of students that want to be taught in that way, and a universe of customers waiting to be nabbed.
What key metric do you think is important, whether or not you're starting out or you're a seasoned vet in the business world? Ray, I want to hear your perspective, and then let's throw it over to Colin. What is there any key metric that pops up to you of saying, this key metric, if I were just to do that thing, this would change the landscape of my business?
The key metric is sales. That is the measure of my success. But in sales, there's things I can control and things I cannot control. And like you've said previously, the sales cycle, the sales follows a cycle, right? Where when I pick up the phone, it's the up cycle, and when I leave the phone down, that's the down cycle. It's not a Santa Claus rally and then a kind of a drought after New Year's. It's up when I am on the phone, right? So the metric is sales is deals closed is the metric of my success. What can I control? It's how many deals am I chasing? How many no's am I chasing? How many emails am I sending? How many phone numbers am I dialing? So that's my personal effort, is the metric from what I can control.
Colin, what's the metric for you? What do you think?
Well, we should have had Ray on last time we recorded. We talked 30 minutes about the power of the phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how that relates to sales. Sales is a volume game, right? But yeah, hammering the phone and getting in front of people, getting in front of prospects, potential buyers. Yeah, I love it. I love what you had to say there, Ray. In our business, Wes, if we're talking about growing our assets under management, basically tripling them from where we're at a war of attrition, right? So we have to not only focus on the portfolios in the accumulation phase and then gathering more assets, either more dollars from our current clients or new clients with new dollars. But we also have to be concerned with the portfolios that are in the liquidation phase, right? So when we're looking at our clients, Some clients aren't touching portfolios. Others are dripping out of their accounts monthly, right? So we're playing this attrition game on a net basis for whatever it might be, the month, the quarter, the year, to say, okay, net of everything, how many dollars did we move under our management this year? And that's the big indicator in our business when we're talking specifically about the managing clients' dollars.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I agree with both of you. And Ray, I really resonate with what you're saying. I think most businesses that at least that I've seen and consulted for, if they just took away the message of put more inputs into quality-based touches, their business would transform. And by the way, including ours. I think this is infinite. Even if you have a great business, you can make it even better. Now, I think that most results, especially in business, come down to one word, which is volume. And I think if you break volume down, you can tear it down into its subcategorical parts, which would be the number of times you're doing something, the way you are doing them, right? And then the duration and frequency of which you are doing them. I think if you really dig deep into it, because it's my 3-point jump shot is not going in like Steph Curry. It's okay, great. Let's first look at, are you doing it the right way? If your elbow is 3 inches out, that's going to have a negative impact on your success rate. So let's move your elbow to 3 inches back towards center, right? So the way you're doing it, then the amount of like the things that you were doing inside of it. So are you actually practicing? So you're actually doing the thing that you're saying you're doing. Are you actually practicing intentionally the shot, right? And then it's okay, how long have you been doing it? If you've only been practicing for 2 years and Steph Curry's been practicing for 25 years, then it would be foolish for you to think that you're going to be able to have the same output because you haven't matched his inputs yet. Then I would say, somebody could say, I have been practicing for 20 years. Okay, let's look at the frequency at which you've been practicing for those 20 years. If you've only been going to the shooting gym once a week for 3 years, that is not the same thing as going every single day, or if you're taking Kobe Bryant's methodology, multiple times per day in that same duration. So really breaking down volume, and that can translate to business as well. How many times are you reaching out to prospects and clients? Okay, if you're doing that, how often are you doing it? What's the frequency? How long have you been doing that? What's the duration? Are you doing it in the right way? Meaning, are you actually giving value to that prospect or client during that outreach? Or is it just a pesky, hey, how about now? How about now? How about now? How about now? So doing the right things, doing them the right way, doing them for the right frequency, and doing them for the right duration. I think that's what it really comes down to.
Yeah, I love it, man. I often hear pitting against working harder versus working smarter. And the answer is both, right? It's Steph Curry doesn't just shoot 5 jump shots perfectly a day and walk away, to your point, or the famous Kobe Bryant methodology. They figured out a way to work smart, but they did not dismiss themselves from the volume. And that's just elbow grease, grinding it out. To think that you're ever going to get away from that and compete against the best, to me, it's fool's gold, right? Yeah, you got to marry both working smarter and working harder if you want to get to that top right quadrant.
I wonder what would happen. I wonder what would happen if we changed that whole adage of wives need to work harder to, or nobody's going to outwork me. I wonder if Jordan and LeBron and Kobe, et cetera, would say it's actually more appropriate if you say no one is going to out volume me. Or even better, if we want to get more specific, nobody is going to out quality volume me. Because when I study these professional athletes, especially because it's just such a good parallel and translation to the business world, it's when Steph Curry is working on his jumper, it's not this casual, I'm just going to throw this shot up and it is what it is, right? No, it is. I've seen some of these like on YouTube. It is a very intentional, I'm paying attention to my form. In fact, I purchased his masterclass where he teaches how to shoot a jump shot, which that's how wild the internet is. Like we can now learn from the actual experts. Dude, he starts in a foot from the rim and has to have a certain amount of makes there. This is arguably the best 3-point shooter of all time. Is still going down to intentional quality volume. Ray, what's your perspective?
The work smarter versus work harder. I love, Colin, how you just said it's both, because work smarter only gets you to the bare minimum, right? Work smarter suggests the minimum amount of effort you need to exert in order to get the results. you're not supposed to stop there. You're supposed to find a way to work smarter and then keep your foot on the gas. Like you said, Wes, the goal of business, and again, for me personally, the goal of business is not to retire and drink martinis on a golf cart. Like, the goal of business is to play the game I love to play at the highest level. So that might mean more volume in terms of number of clients. That might be one way I measure the success. It might just mean fewer clients, bigger budgets, right? The work smarter and work harder, I agree. That's like a kind of a false binary. It's really do the work that I love to do, always challenging myself to do it at not even the highest level, at a higher level, because there is no highest level, right? Only the highest level that's currently being performed is what we call the highest level, but that's only until the next person. That's right. That's only till Steph Curry 2.0 eclipses what Steph's doing.
That's an outstanding point. The highest level now is probably going to be laughable 15, 20 years from now. Hell,
think about Olympic records.
Yep.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah. Who was it? We've all heard the saying, practice makes perfect. I think it was Magic Johnson that came along. Some famous athlete came along and said, no, perfect practice makes perfect. It's not, you can't just throw the ball over your head like this 50 times and say, oh, I got 50 shots up today. The quality of those shots definitely matters. So being intentional about your effort is how you marry the two, right? Not only do we get the quality that we desire, but we can do it at scale. We can do it at volume.
Yeah, I want you to keep minding that. What does perfect practice mean to you? Like in your business?
No, that's fantastic. I love the question. So I think there is a disease. I'm sure it's in a lot of industries, but definitely I can speak to our lane, to our vertical, the financial services industry. You can disguise doing well during the day, or like being busy during the day. We call it playing office, right? Like, you're not doing anything, right? Like, you're definitely moving it forward a little. But probably if I had to define what does it look like in my day, it's doing the thing that I'm putting off first. What is that thing clouding over me that I'm just like, I should return this phone call. I should, send this email. I should set up the account for the call, whatever it is. And I know in my heart of hearts, in an honest moment, that I need to be prioritizing the highest leverage opportunity, and I'm putting it off for whatever reason. So don't play office. Don't try to organize your desk or tinker with the monitors or whatever it is. It could be a lot more sophisticated than that. Believe me, reading books, consuming podcasts, these are things that oftentimes financial advisors think, oh, I'm really getting more knowledgeable. Don't excuse the actual work. Don't excuse the actual action of being a financial advisor. At the end of the day, like I said, it's an attrition game. We need more dollars under our management at the end of this year than we started with. And that's true each and every day, each and every week, month, quarter, year, whatever might have you. So if you are giving yourself that out by being busy and playing office and not actually doing what the highest leverage opportunities are in front of you, it's not perfect practice. It's just practice.
Wes, what do you think when I say part of perfect practice is enjoying the practice, like enjoying just perfecting your jump shot? And specifically to you, Wes, what part of perfect practice in your job would the outsider might not think this is something enjoyable to you, but when you are sharpening your sword, when you are practicing your swing, like this, can you make it enjoyable for yourself? Go.
So I think that business success and building wealth successfully comes down to what we were talking about earlier, volume. I think the only way that you can put in and create real volume is to make the game sustainable. I think the prerequisite to making the game sustainable is enjoying the game. There is 0% chance Michael Jordan becomes the best basketball player in history if he did not like basketball. 0% chance. So I think it's this hidden little secret that, oh, I just have to go off over here and I'm just going to grind it out. Grinding it out for 25 years is really hard to do. I would actually say it's impossible to do. Versus, I had a business mentor telling me a long time ago, which was perfect. Don't play any business games you're not willing to play for either 25 years or for the rest of your life. I can't compete with the guy who created Chick-fil-A. Can't, because he's been doing it for decades. It's just, this is not possible. So, and we're not going to shortcut the success curve. You're not going to become a success overnight. You and I don't know anybody who's ever done that. I'm sure there's examples of that, but I'm sure even in those examples that we would think of, it's not really an overnight success. We know for sure that it just takes a massive amount of volume over a long period of time to become sustainably successful. So that's why, to answer your question, Ray, I think it is a prerequisite to have a game that is enjoyable for you to play.
Yeah, and Wes, do you want to riff on the following? If lottery winners be overnight successes, like what destiny awaits them?
From my understanding, the actual data of lottery winners, and I think I'm almost pretty accurate here, which is like 75 to 85% of them give up almost all of their wealth within a handful of years of winning the lottery. Why? Because they don't have the muscle to sustain that level of wealth. They didn't have to earn it. It is not a surprise to me that a disproportionate amount of lottery winners go broke in a reasonably short amount of time. Colin, what do you think about those statistics? If, number one, do you believe them? If they're accurate, and then what are your thoughts on it?
I totally believe them. I heard one time, I can't remember who said it, so I apologize for not being able to credit the person, but they said that money will make you happy if you earned it. And now we could go all the way. That's probably a whole episode in and of itself. But yeah, earning it is, I think you started out the call today, Wes, with the money is just a byproduct of the value that we're creating. It's not even really what we're searching for. That's just an end result, right? We are looking to create a full service financial services firm that adds incredible value over and above what they could get anywhere else, right? And as a result, we are our compensation is commensurate, right? But that's down the road, right? That's after the fact that you create value, which actually reminds me of something that we were touching on earlier. Don't document before you do. Go out first and actually do something, then record it and tell people your experience. And you don't have to worry about that authenticity bug. I just wanted to get that out before we wrapped here. But yeah, without training the muscle, it's just like anything, right? If you don't ride a bike, you're not going to be that good at it. Yeah, if you don't shoot free throws, you're not. I don't care how much you read about them or watch Steph Curry do it. You're just not going to be that good. So when you inherit massive amounts of wealth, and that scales all the way up, we have clients that leave a significant legacy to their children, and the children don't know how to do it. They don't know how to do right by it either. So I don't think it's just lottery ticket winners. I think it comes from inheritance. It comes from trust fund kids. That the notion of them spoiling riches, that's as old as time, right? That's as old as man has been around to spoil riches.
Yeah, I forget what the stat is, but I think it's something along the lines of generational wealth. We're talking about funny money, like money that you can't even conceivably understand. For the most part, goes away, I believe, in 2 to 3 to 4 generations, which is pretty wild if you think about it, because you're at that point, you're probably talking about the equivalent of billions of dollars completely going away in just a few children, which is pretty wild to think about. And it comes back to, in my opinion, because if you didn't earn it, then you didn't build the muscle, you didn't build the skill, you didn't build the pain tolerance, you didn't build the discipline, right? So how are you going to sustain it? Ray, what's your perspective on just getting wealth handed to you?
I can tell you, I have the experience. I married rich, and I'm trying to think of an appropriate metaphor, but it's like I stopped caring about the difference between vinegar and $1,000 bottles of wine. I was just cracking the bottles. And the point I'm trying to make with that off the dome metaphor is that, yeah, that money not earned is not precious. Simply put, the money not earned is not precious. And money is precious. It can feed us. It can house us. We can do great things with it. Your money, when you buy a painting off me, goes to an artist, and it pays his rent. It allows him to do the only thing that the gods will allow him to do, which is make art. So money is an amazing thing. Yeah, when it is handed to you, it's almost valueless. right? And like we keep coming back to creating value, adding value, and it is meaningless, it is valueless, it's not precious, and it disappears.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to think about the idea of the value of a dollar diminishing proportional to the sweat that you put into earning it, which is really fascinating because it's supposed to be a unit of value, but that value at the end of the day, a portion of that is subjective. And that subjectivity is directly contingent on whether or not in your bones, if you deserved to earn that money, if you earned that money. No different than I imagine a marathon runner will consume a donut or a piece of cake or drink a gallon of water after he or she has run the marathon. I'm going to imagine that cake or donut or water tastes significantly different than if you did not run the marathon.
Yeah, and think of the person we know, Wes, who was living in his car while he was designing a video game, and the thousands that have trickled in the first 2 weeks of his game being released. Think about how delicious that those thousands are compared to me, who was just given a credit card when I married and given a car, and it was like inflows, outflows. It didn't like it, I didn't even flinch. But that is the power of creating value. And that's the power of how good that can feel when it's earned.
Absolutely.
There's something in here about the scarcity of it. Like when money isn't scarce to you, then yeah, you do diminish the value of it. But I don't know. I could think of like when I got my first car, for example. It was everything to me. It's all I wanted is like because it represented so many things. Like I was maturing. It came with at least a certain amount of independence, so on and so forth. 3 months later, 6 months later, a year later, that car was just another car. Yeah, it no longer was it scarce, right? No longer did I like yearn for it. Right. So I think there's probably something in there about, hey, this is not available to me. And because of that, it represents a certain value that I can't maybe quantify to the decimal, but that's probably the different levels of appreciation towards things. $1 to somebody means the world. $1 to somebody else, they'd walk past it if they saw it on the ground. I don't know. Maybe we explore that concept on a further episode.
Yeah,
and I
absolutely.
think that echoes what we said earlier, where the highest level of the game is just yet to be played, right? Because the same goes for quantities of money, right? There's never enough, or
Yeah.
there's no magic number that you can give me that will stop me from doing the job that I love and trying to do it better. And in terms of the scarcity, when you were a teenager and then you got that car and it was the first time you had experienced this freedom where you could drive somewhere where your parents couldn't find you and tell you to come home for dinner, like that took you, and it wasn't out of your comfort zone, but that took you to a new frontier. And then once you lived there for a little while, the new frontier was a little further.
Yeah, you raised
right?
it. Yep.
And I think that is part of enjoying the perfect practice, is that getting out of your comfort zone and reaching for that new frontier, 3xing your sales and then 3xing them again.
Absolutely.
Right. And just enjoying that difficult reach.
Yeah, I think that's what the game is about. I think that's intrinsically built into human beings. Like we would not be here if we didn't go through a massive amount of years of competition, right? We are here because there was a drive to survive and succeed and go beyond status quo, period. But guys, I think this is a great time to cut off this session here and head over to Patreon to keep going deeper into these topics. And for everybody listening, we love you guys. Colin and Ray, love you guys both. Thank you so much for being part of this journey. And we'll get back on the floor. Onward and upward, guys.
Heck yeah, looking forward to it.